My father always said trust was the most expensive thing a man could give, I told Daniel as we stood outside my office building. Funny thing is, I gave mine away for free. Daniel laughed and shook his head. You always talk like that when you're tired, Ethan. I'm not tired, I said. Just thinking. You think too much about business, he replied. Go home. Spend time with Lily. That woman worships you. I smiled at that. Yeah. She does. At least, that's what I believed back then. My name is Ethan Cole, and I built my life from nothing but stubborn hope and long nights. I owned a growing logistics company in New York, a house with glass walls and a long driveway, and a wife I believed was my greatest blessing. That evening, I stepped into the house and called out, Lily, I'm home. Her voice came from the kitchen. Finally. You're late again. I walked in and saw her standing at the counter, stirring something in a pot. She turned and smiled, and for a moment, everything in my world felt steady. You smell like garlic, I joked. And you smell like stress, she shot back, laughing. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her waist. Missed you. You say that every day. Because it's true every day. She rolled her eyes but leaned into me. Go wash your hands. Dinner's ready. As I turned to leave, I heard the front door open outside. The faint sound of footsteps followed. That must be Marcus, Lily said casually. I nodded. Yeah. I asked him to wait after dropping me off. Marcus Reed had been my driver for almost a year. I still remembered the day I hired him like it happened yesterday. Sir, please, he had said, standing in front of my office desk months ago. I just need a chance. My mother is sick. I can't lose this job. I leaned back in my chair back then and studied him. He looked nervous but determined. You have experience? I asked. Yes, sir. 5 years. You understand loyalty matters more than driving skills? Yes, sir, he answered quickly. I won't let you down. Something about his voice made me believe him. And that belief changed everything. Back in the present, Marcus stepped into the kitchen doorway and lowered his head slightly. Good evening, sir, he said. Relax, Marcus, I replied. You're off duty. Yes, sir. Lily smiled at him. Marcus, you made it just in time. Ethan was about to eat without you. I frowned slightly. Without him? She shrugged. He drove you all day. He deserves food too. Marcus waved his hands quickly. No, ma'am. I don't want to disturb. You're not disturbing, Lily insisted. Sit. I chuckled and pulled out a chair. She's bouger than me, Marcus. Better listen. He gave a small, shy smile and sat down. During dinner, Lily kept talking. Marcus is so reliable, Ethan, she said. You're lucky you found him. I know, I replied. Hard to find good people these days. Marcus looked down at his plate. Thank you, sir. After dinner, I grabbed my phone and stepped into the living room. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Daniel. Hey, I answered. You still alive? He joked. Barely. Lily fed me too much. That woman loves you too much, he laughed. Not possible. He paused, then said, Hey, about that driver of yours. What about him? You trust him a lot, Daniel said. He earned it. Daniel exhaled slowly. Just be careful, Ethan. I frowned. Careful of what? You trust people too easily. I sighed. Not this again. I'm serious, he insisted. Success attracts strange loyalty. Marcus isn't strange, I replied. He's respectful, hardworking, and grateful. Daniel chuckled softly. That's what you always say before someone disappoints you. You worry too much. Maybe, he said. But I'd rather worry than regret. I shook my head. You sound like my father. Smart man, he replied. We hung up after that, and I walked toward the front window. That's when I saw them. Lily and Marcus were standing in the driveway. They weren't doing anything wrong, just talking. But they were laughing. Not a polite laugh. A long, comfortable laugh. Lily leaned slightly toward him as she spoke, her hand resting on the car door. Marcus said something I couldn't hear, and she laughed again. I stood there, watching longer than I should have. Something inside my chest tightened, but I didn't know why. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just normal conversation. Still, they stayed there longer than necessary. Marcus finally opened the car door, then paused to say something else. Lily smiled again. Too warmly. Too comfortably. I stepped back from the window before they noticed me watching. When Lily walked back inside, she looked cheerful. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I replied. Just tired. You worked too hard, she said gently. Maybe. She kissed my cheek and headed upstairs. I stood alone in the hallway, staring at nothing. A strange feeling lingered in my chest, like a quiet warning I didn't want to hear. I rubbed my face and whispered to myself. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe that was the first warning I chose to ignore. "Sir, do you want me to take the car home or drop you first?" Marcus asked as he drove through the quiet street. "Drop me first," I said. "I want to surprise Lily." "Yes, sir," he replied. I leaned back in the seat and smiled faintly. "Don't tell her I came early." "I understand, sir," he said. I watched the house come into view through the windshield. The lights were off, which felt strange. "Marcus," I said, frowning slightly, "did Lily mention going out tonight?" "No, sir," he answered. "Ma'am didn't say anything." I murmured. He parked the car near the driveway. "Good night, sir," he said. "Yeah. See you tomorrow," I replied as I stepped out. The night felt colder than usual. I walked toward the front door, pulling my suitcase behind me. "Lily?" I called as I unlocked the door. No answer. I stepped inside and flipped the light switch. The house felt empty. "Lily?" I called again, louder this time. Still nothing. My chest tightened slightly. I walked into the kitchen. No dishes in the sink. No sound from upstairs. "Maybe she's asleep," I muttered. I grabbed my phone and called her number. The phone rang once. Then stopped. A robotic voice answered. "The number you are calling is switched off." I frowned deeply. Switched off? That wasn't like her. I walked upstairs quickly. "Lily?" I shouted again. My footsteps echoed down the hallway as I pushed open the bedroom door. That's when my world tilted. Her closet door stood wide open. Empty. Completely empty. "No, no, no," I whispered. I stepped closer and touched the wooden hanger swinging gently. Her dresses were gone. Her shoes were gone. Even her perfume bottles were missing. "What is this?" I muttered, panic rising in my throat. I ran to the dresser and pulled it open. Empty. My hands started shaking. "Lily, what did you do?" I whispered. I rushed back downstairs, breathing harder with every step. That's when I saw it. A single white envelope sitting on the kitchen table. My name written on it. Ethan. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I picked up the envelope with trembling fingers. "Please, don't be what I think," I whispered. I tore it open. Inside was a letter. My hands shook as I unfolded it. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean to hurt you." My throat closed as I read the words. "I know this will break your heart, but I can't live a lie anymore. I'm leaving. I found someone who understands me. Please don't try to find me." My breath caught. "No," I whispered. "I never meant to betray you, but I need to follow my heart. Forgive me if you can." The letter slipped from my hands and fell onto the floor. My knees felt weak. "Someone else?" I whispered hoarsely. "Who?" I grabbed my phone again and dialed Daniel's number. He answered after 2 rings. "Ethan? Aren't you supposed to be in Chicago?" "I came home early," I said, my voice shaking. "Daniel? Lily is gone." "What?" he asked sharply. "She packed everything," I said. "Her closet is empty. She left a letter." Silence filled the line. "Daniel, say something," I whispered. He exhaled slowly. "Ethan, listen carefully." "What?" I demanded. "Marcus didn't show up to work today," he said. My grip tightened on the phone. "What do you mean?" "I mean he didn't answer calls. No messages. Nothing." "That doesn't mean anything," I said quickly. "Maybe he's sick." "Ethan," Daniel's voice turned quiet. "Marcus didn't just quit." My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" I asked. He hesitated before answering. "He left the country, with Lily." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "No," I whispered. "I checked with the agency," Daniel continued. "They confirmed his passport was used this morning." "No," I repeated louder. "You're wrong." I wish I was. My legs gave out, and I dropped into a chair. "She wouldn't do that," I said weakly. "Not with him." "I'm sorry, Ethan," Daniel said softly. My mind replayed every moment I had ignored. Every laugh. Every smile. Every warning. "Why Marcus?" I whispered. "I don't know," Daniel replied. Silence filled the line again. Then he spoke carefully. "There's something else." My chest tightened. "What now?" "I got a call from Olivia Grant," he said. "My lawyer?" I asked. "Yes. Why would she call you?" "She received legal paperwork today," he said slowly. My heart pounded harder. "What paperwork?" I asked. "Marriage records," Daniel answered quietly. The room spun around me. "Marriage?" I repeated. "Yes," he said. "Whose marriage?" I demanded. Daniel paused before answering. "Lily and Marcus." The words sliced through me. "That's impossible," I said hoarsely. "She's married to me." "She filed the papers in New York," he said. 2 weeks ago." My breath stopped. While still married to me? I whispered. Yes. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. I stared at the floor, unable to think. Unable to breathe. Unable to understand. She married him, I whispered. Behind my back. I'm sorry, Ethan, Daniel said again. I closed my eyes tightly. Every memory of her smile now felt like a lie. Every kiss felt fake. Every word felt poisoned. How long did they plan this? I whispered weakly. Daniel didn't answer. Maybe he didn't know. Or maybe there was no answer that could fix this. I leaned forward and covered my face with my hands. Everything I believed in had shattered in a single night. My wife. My driver. My trust. All gone. My voice trembled as I whispered into the empty room. How long were they lying to me? Ethan, open the door. I ignored Daniel's voice and took another sip from the glass in my hand. Ethan, I know you're inside, he said again, knocking harder. Go away, I muttered. I'm not leaving, he replied. Not this time. I stared at the bottle on the table and laughed bitterly. Everyone leaves eventually. Not me, he shouted. I stood slowly and walked to the door. When I opened it, Daniel stepped inside without waiting. He looked around the living room and shook his head. What did you do to this place? Nothing, I said, dropping back onto the couch. Nothing, he repeated. You call this nothing? Empty bottles sat on the floor. Papers covered the table. Dust filled the air like I had forgotten how to live. Leave it alone, I muttered. Daniel picked up a bottle and slammed it into the trash bin. You've been drinking all day again? So what? I snapped. So what? He repeated angrily. Your company is falling apart, Ethan. I don't care, I said quietly. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. You built that company from nothing. And she destroyed everything, I replied. Daniel sat across from me. Lily destroyed your marriage, not your life. I laughed coldly. Same thing. No, he said firmly. Not the same. I grabbed the bottle again. Daniel snatched it from my hand. Enough. Give it back, I growled. No. It's mine, I snapped. And your life is mine to protect, he shot back. Before I could reply, another voice echoed from the doorway. You look pathetic. I froze. Dad? I whispered. Henry Cole stepped into the room slowly, his expression hard and unforgiving. I warned you about blind trust, he said. I don't need a lecture, I muttered. You need reality, he replied. Daniel stepped aside quietly as my father walked closer. You lost your wife because you trusted blindly, he said coldly. His words stabbed deeper than any insult. I trusted my wife, I whispered. You trusted without thinking, he corrected. My chest tightened. She betrayed me. And now you betray yourself, he snapped. Silence filled the room. I looked at the floor, unable to meet his eyes. You think drowning in alcohol will fix your pain, he continued. No, I admitted quietly. Then why keep doing it, he demanded. Because it hurts, I whispered. My father's expression softened slightly. Pain is not an excuse to quit living, he said. Daniel nodded beside him. He's right. I exhaled slowly. I don't know how to start again. Start by standing up, my father replied. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed loudly on the table. I glanced at the screen. Robert Hayes. I groaned. Great. That snake. Answer it, Daniel said. I pressed the button reluctantly. What do you want, Robert? His voice sounded smooth and fake. Ethan, my friend. I heard about your situation. Get to the point, I said coldly. I'd like to buy your company shares, he said calmly. My grip tightened on the phone. You think I'm desperate? I think you're distracted, he replied. Sell now before everything collapses. Go to hell, I snapped. He chuckled. Think about it, Ethan. Broken men make bad decisions. The call ended. I threw the phone onto the couch. You see? Daniel said angrily. People are circling like vultures. That's business, I muttered. No, my father replied firmly. That's weakness inviting attack. I rubbed my face tiredly. I can't fix this alone, I admitted quietly. You don't have to, Daniel said. My father nodded once. You still have allies. A knock sounded at the door. Daniel frowned. Expecting someone? No, I said. He walked to the door and opened it. A woman stepped inside, holding a folder in her hand. She looked calm, professional, and confident. Good afternoon, she said politely. I'm Olivia Grant. I blinked slowly. My lawyer? Yes, she replied. Daniel stepped aside, letting her walk in. She glanced around the messy room but didn't comment. Mr. Cole, she said calmly, we need to talk. About what? I asked. Your marriage, she replied. I swallowed hard. There's nothing left to discuss. There is, she said firmly. My father folded his arms. Go on. Olivia opened her folder and placed documents on the table. Your wife attempted to transfer shared assets before leaving, she explained. My anger rose instantly. She tried to steal from me? Yes, she replied calmly. Daniel cursed under his breath. Unbelievable. Olivia looked directly at me. You have legal options, she continued. Divorce. Asset recovery. Financial protection. I stared at the papers silently. Do you want revenge? She asked quietly. I hesitated. No. I want my life back. She nodded slightly. You lost a marriage, not your life, she said calmly. Let's fix this. Her voice felt steady, like something solid in the middle of chaos. For the first time in months, I felt something unfamiliar inside my chest. Not anger. Not grief. Something smaller. Something fragile. For the first time in months, I felt a small spark of hope. Sign here, Olivia said, sliding the document across the table. I picked up the pen and stared at the line for a moment. This finalizes the recovery? Yes, she replied calmly. These papers force the return of the funds Lily tried to move before leaving. I let out a slow breath. So she really tried to take everything. Olivia nodded once. Not everything, but enough to hurt you. Daniel leaned against the wall behind me. Good thing you hired the best lawyer in the city. Olivia ignored his praise and looked straight at me. You did the hard part, Ethan. You showed up. I signed the paper carefully. Feels strange, fighting someone I once trusted. That feeling will pass, she replied. Daniel smirked slightly. And when it does, you'll feel stronger. I placed the pen down and leaned back in the chair. What's next? Next, Olivia said, closing the folder, you rebuild. Daniel clapped his hands once. Finally. I've been waiting to hear that word. I gave him a tired smile. You've been pushing me for months. And I'll keep pushing, he replied. Because you're not allowed to quit. Olivia stood up. Your company needs your attention. I nodded slowly. Yeah. I know. Your employees trust you, she added. Don't abandon them. Her words settled inside me like quiet truth. I won't, I said. Later that day, I walked into my office building for the first time in weeks. Morning, sir, my assistant said nervously. Morning, I replied. Daniel walked beside me, whispering, see? Nobody ran away. They're still here. I noticed, I said. Inside my office, I sat behind the desk and looked at the stack of files waiting for me. Daniel crossed his arms. Looks like work missed you. Or piled up to punish me, I muttered. He chuckled. Same thing. I opened the first file. Shipping delays? I asked. Yeah, Daniel replied. Nothing you can't fix. I nodded slowly. Then let's fix it. Hours passed as I reviewed contracts and answered calls. For the first time in months, my mind felt focused instead of broken. Daniel leaned into the doorway later. You look alive again. Don't jinx it, I replied. He grinned. Too late. A soft knock interrupted us. Come in, I called. The door opened, and a woman stepped inside holding a folder. Mr. Cole, she asked politely. Yes, I replied. I'm Grace Turner, she said. Consultant. Daniel raised an eyebrow. The efficiency expert? Yes, she answered calmly. I gestured toward the chair. Please, sit. Grace sat down without hesitation. Your operations have strong potential. That sounds polite, I said. But honest? She met my eyes directly. Honest. Daniel smirked. I like her already. Grace ignored him and opened her folder. You lost time recently, she said carefully. But recovery is possible. I studied her expression. No pity. No judgment. Just honesty. What do you suggest? I asked. Focus, she replied simply. Daniel chuckled. That's it? Grace nodded. Focus and discipline rebuild what pain destroys. Her words felt steady, not dramatic. I leaned forward slightly. You talk like you've seen failure before. I have, she answered quietly. Daniel leaned closer. And I survived it, she replied calmly. Silence filled the room for a moment. Then she looked directly at me and said, Pain doesn't end your story. It rewrites it. Her voice didn't sound dramatic. Just certain. I swallowed slowly. That's a strong way to look at things. It's a necessary way, she replied. Daniel nodded slowly. You two sound like motivational speakers. Grace allowed a small smile. Not motivation. Reality. I felt something shift inside me. Not healing. Not yet. But movement. Later that evening, Daniel dropped into the chair across from my desk. You worked 12 hours today, he said. Feels better than drinking 12 glasses, I replied. He laughed. Progress. My phone buzzed on the desk. Daniel picked it up and frowned. What? I asked. He stared at the screen for a moment before handing it to me. Rumor from one of my contacts, he said quietly. I read the message slowly. Marcus and Lily, struggling financially. Lost apartment. Debt collectors calling. My chest tightened unexpectedly. Is it true? I asked. Daniel shrugged. Sounds like karma to me. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. I don't feel happy hearing that, I admitted. Daniel studied me carefully. You don't have to feel happy. Silence stretched between us. Then Daniel leaned forward slightly. You won't believe where they are now. You ready to hear this? Daniel asked as he dropped a thin folder onto my desk. I looked up from my laptop. That tone usually means bad news. Not bad, he replied. Just surprising. I leaned back in my chair. All right, say it. Daniel opened the folder and slid a printed photo toward me. Recognize that building? He asked. I picked up the photo and frowned. The paint looked chipped. The windows were cracked. That can't be right, I said slowly. It is, he replied. You're telling me they live there? I asked. Daniel nodded. Small apartment. Cheap area. I stared at the photo longer than I should have. That's not the life she wanted, I muttered. No, Daniel said quietly. Not even close. I placed the photo back onto the desk. What happened to Marcus's job? He lost it, Daniel replied. Lost it how? Missed payments. Missed work. Got fired. I exhaled slowly. So the luxury dream ended fast. Daniel crossed his arms. Faster than either of them expected. I rubbed my temples. And Lily? Daniel hesitated. Working. Doing what? 2 jobs, he replied. Sometimes 3. My chest tightened unexpectedly. Why do I feel strange hearing that? I asked quietly. Because you're human, Daniel said. I should feel angry, I muttered. You probably still are, he replied. I leaned forward slightly. Did she contact anyone? No, Daniel answered. She stayed silent. A knock sounded on my office door. Come in, I called. The door opened slowly, and Grace stepped inside holding a tablet. Am I interrupting? She asked calmly. Not at all, I replied. Daniel nodded toward her. We're discussing old ghosts. Grace studied my face briefly. That usually means pain. I forced a small smile. You're not wrong. She placed the tablet on the desk. Shipment reports are ready. Thanks, I said. She hesitated for a second. You look tense. Daniel chuckled. Understatement. Grace looked directly at me. Whatever news you received, don't let it control your decisions. I won't, I replied quietly. She nodded once and left the room. Daniel waited until the door closed before speaking again. There's more, he said. Of course there is, I replied. Someone contacted me this morning, he continued. Who? I asked. He flipped another page in the folder. Marcus's sister, he said. I blinked slowly. He has a sister? Yes, Daniel replied. Sophia Reed. What does she want? She asked to meet you. Why? Daniel shrugged. Said it's about Marcus. I frowned deeply. Sounds suspicious. Maybe, he admitted. But she sounded nervous. Set the meeting, I said after a pause. You sure? Daniel asked. Yes, I replied firmly. I want answers. Later that afternoon, I sat in a quiet cafe near my office. Daniel sat across from me, scanning the entrance. You nervous? He asked. A little, I admitted. The door opened, and a woman stepped inside. She looked tired but determined. Daniel leaned closer. That must be her. She walked toward us slowly. Mr. Cole, she asked softly. Yes, I replied. I'm Sophia Reed, she said. Daniel nodded politely. Sit down. She took the chair across from me. Thank you for meeting me, she said nervously. You wanted to talk about Marcus, I replied. She nodded once. Yes. Daniel leaned forward. Start talking. Sophia hesitated before speaking. You trusted my brother, she said quietly. I did, I replied. Her eyes lowered. That was your first mistake. My chest tightened. What do you mean? She looked up at me again. You don't know the real Marcus, she said. Silence filled the table. Daniel frowned. Explain that. Sophia swallowed slowly. My brother has always chased money, she continued. Always. I leaned forward slightly. Go on. He borrowed money from dangerous people, she said quietly. Daniel cursed under his breath. Debt? Yes, she replied. How bad? I asked. Very bad, she answered. My mind raced with questions. So he used Lily to escape debt? I asked. Sophia nodded slowly. That's what I believe. Daniel slammed his palm lightly against the table. Unbelievable. I stared at Sophia carefully. Why tell me this now? I asked. She hesitated again. Because things are getting worse, she said softly. My chest tightened again. Worse how? I asked. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. There's something about Lily, something you must know. There's something about Lily, something you must know. Sophia's whisper hung in the air, heavy and cold. I leaned closer across the table. Say it. Daniel crossed his arms beside me. Don't drag this out. Sophia inhaled slowly. My brother didn't fall in love with Lily. My jaw tightened. Then why marry her? For money, she said quietly. Daniel cursed under his breath. Of course. I stared at Sophia, waiting for more. He had debts before he met Lily, she continued. Big ones. How big? I asked. Enough to ruin him, she replied. Daniel leaned forward. Who did he owe? Private lenders, she said carefully. Not banks. My chest tightened. Dangerous people? She nodded slowly. I pressed my palms against the table. So he targeted Lily? Sophia hesitated. Yes, she said finally. Daniel shook his head. That snake planned everything. I felt heat rising in my chest. He used her to get money? Yes, Sophia replied. How? I demanded. He believed Lily had access to your finances, she explained. I clenched my jaw. She didn't. He thought she did, Sophia corrected. Daniel scoffed. So he married her hoping to steal from Ethan. Yes, she whispered. Silence settled around us. Every memory of Marcus replayed in my mind. His quiet voice. His humble smile. His loyalty. All fake. All lies, I muttered. Sophia lowered her gaze. He always knew how to act. Daniel looked at me carefully. You all right? No, I replied honestly. My thoughts tangled together, anger, humiliation, disbelief. Then Sophia spoke again. There's more, she said softly. I stiffened. There's always more. She nodded once. My brother didn't just lie to you, she continued. He lied to Lily too. I blinked slowly. What do you mean? Daniel frowned. Explain that. Sophia folded her hands tightly. He made her believe you were hiding money from her, she said. My breath caught. What? He told her you were planning to cut her out, she continued. That's insane, Daniel snapped. Sophia nodded sadly. But she believed him. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. She trusted him over me, I whispered. She was scared, Sophia replied. Scared of what? I demanded. Being abandoned, she said quietly. My chest tightened painfully. Daniel shook his head. That still doesn't excuse betrayal. No, Sophia admitted. It doesn't. I rubbed my face slowly. So he manipulated her emotions, I said quietly. Yes, Sophia replied. Made her doubt me, I added. Yes. I exhaled sharply. And she followed him. Sophia nodded again. Daniel leaned toward me. Don't feel sorry for her. I'm not, I replied quickly. But something inside me twisted painfully. Memories of Lily's laughter. Her late-night worries. Her quiet fears. Had Marcus used those fears against her? Sophia studied my expression. You still care about her, she said softly. I care about truth, I replied. Daniel scoffed. And revenge. I ignored him. Where is Marcus now? I asked Sophia. Still trying to escape debt, she answered. Running? I asked. Yes. Daniel leaned back. That won't last forever. Sophia nodded. No, it won't. A voice behind us interrupted. Mr. Cole? I turned quickly. A tall man stood near our table, holding a badge. I'm Detective Aaron Mills, he said calmly. Daniel frowned. Detective? Yes, he replied. I stood slowly. What do you want? To speak with you, he said. Sophia stiffened slightly. Daniel crossed his arms. About what? Marcus Reed, the detective answered. My pulse quickened. What about him? I asked. The detective stepped closer and lowered his voice. We've been tracking financial fraud connected to him, he said. Daniel cursed quietly. Knew it. I stared at the detective. Fraud? Yes, he replied. How serious? I asked. Very serious, he answered. Sophia looked nervous now. He used multiple identities, the detective continued. Daniel shook his head. Unbelievable. He transferred money through false accounts, he added. My anger flared again. So he didn't just betray me, I muttered. He broke the law. Yes, the detective said. Sophia whispered, I warned him this would happen. Daniel glanced at me. This is bigger than we thought. I swallowed slowly. What do you need from me? I asked the detective. Information, he replied. About what? Your financial records, he said. Anything he had access to. Daniel nodded quickly. We can provide that. I looked at the detective carefully. Will this stop him? I asked. Eventually, he replied. Silence stretched between us. Then the detective leaned slightly closer. His voice dropped lower, serious and steady. This case is bigger than you think, Ethan. Ethan, this came for you, my assistant said as she stepped into my office holding a sealed envelope. I looked up from my laptop. Who's it from? No return address, she replied. I frowned slightly. Leave it on the desk. She placed it down carefully. Looks important. Everything looks important these days, I muttered. She gave a small nod and left the room quietly. I stared at the envelope for several seconds. Daniel walked in a moment later. Why are you staring at paper like it insulted you? No return address, I replied. That usually means trouble, he said. I picked up the envelope slowly. Feels heavier than it should. Open it, Daniel urged. I tore the edge carefully and slid the letter out. The moment I saw the handwriting, my chest tightened. Daniel, I whispered. What? He asked. It's from Lily. Silence filled the room instantly. Read it, Daniel said quietly. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded the paper. The words blurred at first, but I forced myself to focus. Dear Ethan, I read aloud softly. My throat tightened. I don't know if you'll read this or throw it away, but I had to try. Daniel stayed silent beside me. I made the biggest mistake of my life, I continued reading. My chest felt heavy with every word. I thought he loved me. I was wrong. Daniel muttered under his breath. Too late for regret. I ignored him and kept reading. I believed Marcus when he said you were hiding things from me, I read slowly. My jaw tightened. I thought you didn't trust me anymore. Daniel scoffed quietly. He poisoned her mind. I swallowed hard and continued. At first, he was kind, I read. He promised me a better life. My grip tightened on the paper. But everything changed after we left, I read further. Daniel leaned closer. Changed how? He became angry, I whispered as I read the next line. What do you mean? Daniel asked. I read aloud again. He controls everything now, I said softly. My stomach twisted. He watches my phone, I continued. He decides where I go. Daniel cursed under his breath. That coward. I felt anger rising in my chest. Why send this now? I muttered. Keep reading, Daniel said. I nodded slowly and continued. I was foolish, I read. I believed lies and ignored the truth. My voice cracked slightly. I hurt you, I whispered as I read her words. Daniel shifted beside me but stayed silent. I thought leaving you would make me happy, I continued. I paused briefly, struggling to steady my breathing. It didn't, I read. Silence filled the office again. I feel trapped, I whispered, reading the next line. Daniel clenched his fists. That man is dangerous. I kept reading. I wish I could undo everything, I read quietly. My heart pounded faster. I wish I listened to you, I added. Daniel exhaled slowly. Regret always comes late. I lowered the paper slightly. What am I supposed to do with this? I asked. Daniel shrugged. Your choice. Before I could respond, the office door opened gently. Grace stepped inside. You both look tense, she said calmly. Bad timing, Daniel muttered. Grace noticed the paper in my hand. Letter? Yes, I replied quietly. From who? She asked. I hesitated before answering. Lily. Grace remained silent for a moment. Do you want to talk about it? She asked softly. Daniel scoffed. She says Marcus turned abusive. Grace studied my face carefully. And how do you feel hearing that? Confused, I admitted. Angry, she asked. Yes. Sad, she added. I hesitated before answering. Also yes. Grace nodded slowly. That's normal, she said. Daniel crossed his arms. Normal doesn't fix betrayal. Grace turned toward him. No, but clarity prevents regret. I looked at her. What does that mean? It means don't react in anger, she replied calmly. Daniel frowned. Easy to say. Grace met my eyes directly. Don't let pain decide your future, she told me. Her voice sounded steady and calm. I lowered my gaze back to the letter. There's more, I whispered. Then read it, Daniel urged. I unfolded the bottom section slowly. My hands felt colder now. The last line waited at the end of the page. I read it aloud quietly. Ethan. I'm in danger. You're sure about this? Daniel asked as we stood near the airport gate. I have to do it, I replied. You don't owe her anything, he said. I owe myself answers, I answered. He studied my face for a moment. Then don't hesitate when the truth hurts. I won't, I said. A voice behind me interrupted. Mr. Cole, Detective Mills said as he approached. Ready to leave? Yes, I replied. Daniel shook my hand firmly. Call me the second you land. I will, I promised. Hours later, I stepped out of the car in a narrow New York street. This is the place? I asked. Yes, Detective Mills replied. We've been tracking Marcus for weeks. I looked at the worn building ahead. Does Lily live here too? Yes, he answered quietly. My chest tightened. Stay close, he added. We climbed the stairs slowly until we reached a faded door. That's his unit, Detective Mills whispered. My heart pounded loudly. You ready? He asked. I nodded once. He knocked hard. Silence followed. Then footsteps sounded from inside. The door opened slightly. Marcus stood there. For a second, he froze. Then his face twisted with anger. You, he muttered. Yes, I replied coldly. What are you doing here? He demanded. Looking for answers, I said. His eyes shifted toward the detective. Who is that? Police, Detective Mills replied calmly. Marcus tried to shut the door, but the detective pushed it open. Step aside, he ordered. Marcus clenched his fists. You don't have a warrant. We do, Detective Mills replied, holding up papers. Marcus's face darkened. I stepped inside slowly. The apartment smelled stale. Then I saw her. Lily stood near the corner of the room. Her face looked pale. Her eyes looked tired. Ethan, she whispered. My chest tightened painfully. What happened to you? I asked quietly. She looked down. I made terrible choices. Marcus snapped angrily. Don't talk to him. I turned toward Marcus. You don't control her anymore. He stepped closer to me. You think you're better than me? I know I am, I replied. He laughed bitterly. You stole her first. I married her, I corrected. Marcus's fists tightened. You ruined everything, he shouted. You ruined your own life, I replied calmly. Detective Mills stepped forward. Marcus Reed, you are under investigation for financial fraud. Marcus glared at him. You have nothing. We have plenty, the detective replied. Lily stepped forward slowly. Marcus, stop, she whispered. Stay out of this, he snapped. I looked at Lily carefully. Did he hurt you? I asked. She hesitated before nodding slightly. My anger flared instantly. You coward, I muttered at Marcus. Marcus lunged toward me suddenly. You don't talk to me like that, he shouted. Detective Mills grabbed him quickly. Stand down, he ordered. Marcus struggled violently. Let me go, he yelled. You're under arrest, the detective replied firmly. Marcus tried to pull free again. I didn't do anything, he shouted. Yes, you did, I said coldly. 2 officers entered behind us and grabbed his arms. Marcus continued shouting as they placed handcuffs on his wrists. You think this ends me? He yelled. Yes, Detective Mills replied calmly. It begins justice. They dragged him toward the door. Marcus glared at me one last time. This isn't over, he hissed. Then he disappeared into the hallway. Silence filled the apartment. Lily collapsed into a chair, covering her face. I ruined everything, she sobbed. Her voice sounded broken. I stood there, unsure what to say. You destroyed us, I said quietly. She cried harder. I know. I took a slow breath. Why, Lily? I asked. She shook her head. I believed lies. You believed him over me, I replied. Yes, she whispered. My chest tightened painfully. You broke my trust, I said. I broke my own life too, she replied weakly. Silence stretched between us. I studied her carefully. She looked smaller than before. Weaker. Broken. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. You did, I replied quietly. Tears streamed down her face. I regret everything, she said. Regret doesn't erase betrayal, I answered. She nodded slowly. I know, she whispered. Detective Mills stepped back into the room. He's in custody, he said. I nodded once. Lily looked up at me again. Her eyes trembled with fear and guilt. Ethan, she whispered softly. What? I asked. She swallowed slowly. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. There's one more truth you don't know. I need everyone out, I said quietly. Detective Mills looked at me. You sure? Yes, I replied. I need to hear this alone. Daniel hesitated. Ethan. Please, I interrupted. He nodded slowly. I'll be outside. Grace gave me one last look. Don't rush your emotions. I won't, I said. The room went silent as they stepped out. Lily was still sitting in the chair, shaking slightly. I pulled another chair across from her. Start talking, I said. She avoided my eyes. I don't even know where to begin. Start with the truth, I replied. She swallowed hard. I married Marcus because I believed him. I know that part, I said. She shook her head. No, you don't know why. I leaned forward. Then explain it. Her hands trembled. He told me you were hiding money from me, she said quietly. My chest tightened. What? He said you didn't trust me with your real wealth, she continued. I clenched my jaw. That's insane. I believed him, she whispered. Why? I demanded. Because I was already scared, she admitted. Scared of what? I asked. Losing you, she said softly. Silence filled the room. I looked away for a moment, trying to process it. So you thought betraying me first would protect you? I asked bitterly. She shook her head quickly. No. I thought I was already being betrayed. I exhaled sharply. That doesn't justify anything. I know, she whispered. I stood up briefly, then sat back down. This is unbelievable, I muttered. Lily looked up at me for the first time. I made a mistake, she said. You made several, I replied. Tears filled her eyes again. I lost everything, she whispered. You gave it away, I corrected. She lowered her head. Silence stretched between us again. Then she spoke softly. There's something else, she said. My body tensed. Of course there is. She hesitated. Say it, I ordered. Her voice cracked. I didn't just leave because of Marcus, she said. I frowned. Then why? She took a shaky breath. I left because I thought I was protecting something. I narrowed my eyes. Protecting what? She looked at me slowly. Myself, she whispered. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. She pressed her hands together tightly. And something else, she added. My stomach tightened. What else? I asked slowly. Her voice dropped. A secret I didn't tell anyone. I stared at her. Stop delaying, I said firmly. She finally spoke. I was pregnant when I left. The words hit me like a shockwave. My breath stopped. What? I whispered. Her eyes filled with tears. It's yours, she said softly. The room went completely silent. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. That's not possible, I said finally. It is, she replied. I found out right before I left. My hands tightened into fists. You never told me, I said. I was scared, she admitted. Scared of what? I demanded. Of how you'd react, she said. I laughed bitterly. So you chose silence over honesty? She nodded slowly. My chest felt heavy. You married another man while carrying my child? I asked. Her lips trembled. Yes. I stepped back slightly. Everything inside me felt like it was collapsing again. You destroyed everything, I whispered. I know, she said quickly. Do you understand what you did? I asked. She nodded through tears. Yes. Then why are you telling me this now? I demanded. Her voice cracked. Because I can't hide it anymore, she said. Silence returned. My mind was spinning. Anger. Shock. Confusion. Something deeper I couldn't name. Lily stood slowly. I didn't plan any of this, she said. But you still chose it, I replied. She looked down. Yes. I rubbed my forehead. This changes nothing, I said firmly. She froze. What? It changes nothing about betrayal, I repeated. Her face fell. But it changes everything about the future, she whispered. I looked at her sharply. No, I said. She stepped closer. Ethan. I raised my hand. Stop. Tears fell again from her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I stared at her silently. Inside me, something fought hard. Pain versus responsibility. Anger versus something softer I didn't want to admit. I turned away slowly. I need time, I said. Lily nodded weakly. I understand. I walked toward the window, breathing heavily. Everything I thought I knew was gone again. A child. My child. With the woman who broke me. My voice came out low as I whispered to myself. Can I forgive betrayal, for the sake of my child? Ethan, you don't have to go in today, Daniel said as we stood outside the courthouse. I do, I replied. It's already handled, he insisted. Marcus is inside. Lawyers are inside. You don't need to see it. I need to finish this, I said firmly. Daniel sighed. You've been through enough. I'm still standing, I replied. He studied me for a moment. Barely. I gave a small, tired smile. Still standing. We walked inside together. Detective Mills nodded at me. He pleaded guilty on several charges. I nodded slowly. Good. Daniel leaned in. No satisfaction in your voice. There isn't any left, I replied. Moments later, Lily appeared at the far end of the hallway. She looked different now. Tired. Humble. Real. I want to talk, she said softly. Daniel stepped forward. Maybe not a good idea. I raised my hand slightly. It's okay. He frowned. Ethan. I said it's okay, I repeated. Daniel stepped back reluctantly. Lily walked closer. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. Good, I replied. She nodded slowly. I deserve that. Silence stretched between us. I ruined everything, she said quietly. Yes, I replied. Tears filled her eyes but didn't fall. I lost myself, she whispered. You did, I said. She looked down. I'm sorry, she said again. I know, I replied. A long pause followed. Then I spoke. I'm not coming back to you. She nodded immediately. I understand. But I won't abandon responsibility, I added. Her eyes lifted slightly. What do you mean, she asked. We have a child, I said. Her breath shook. Yes. I will be part of their life, I continued. She nodded again. I want that. But that's all, I said firmly. She closed her eyes briefly. I know. No more arguments. No more lies. Just truth. Daniel stepped closer. We should go. I nodded. Before leaving, I looked at Lily one last time. No more secrets, I said. I promise, she whispered. I turned away and walked out. Weeks passed. The legal cases ended. Marcus was sentenced. Everything that once felt like chaos slowly became final. One evening, Grace met me outside my office. You look calmer, she said. I feel quieter, I replied. That's good, she said. I'm not sure it is, I admitted. She tilted her head. Why? Because quiet gives space for thoughts, I said. And thoughts are dangerous? She asked. Sometimes, I replied. She smiled slightly. Or healing. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I looked at her. You were right, I said finally. About what? She asked. Pain doesn't end a story, I replied. It rewrites it. She nodded softly. And yours is still being written. I exhaled slowly. I think I finally understand that. Months later. I stood outside the hospital room. Daniel stood beside me. You ready? He asked. No, I replied honestly. But you're going in anyway? He said. Yes, I answered. The door opened. I stepped inside. And there she was. My newborn child. Small. Fragile. Real. Lily sat quietly in the corner, watching. You can hold them, she said softly. I hesitated. Then I reached out. My arms wrapped around my child carefully. Everything else disappeared. No betrayal. No anger. Just silence. Just life. Daniel whispered behind me, you okay? I didn't answer immediately. Because something inside me finally settled. I lost my wife, I said quietly. Lily looked down. But I found my strength. A long silence followed. Then I added, still holding my child close. Betrayal broke me once, but truth rebuilt me into someone stronger than I ever was.